Hi everyone. There is no shame in using third-party lenses. Yes, I just did say that. And I meant it because there is no shame. There's shame in using the wrong equipment, but there's no shame in using third-party lenses. And I'm going to tell you why in just a second. I'm Robert Maxfield, and I've been a concert photographer in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas for over 45 years. And I just got through shooting 35, 40 bands last weekend in over 3 days. So I'm still pretty active, and I've shot tons of major bands all over the years. So anyway, we're going to talk today about shooting with third-party lenses and what exactly a third-party lens is and why it's okay to do that. When I started photographing concerts back in the late 1970s, my parents bought me for Christmas this Petrie compact 35 camera. It came with a 50mm 1.8 lens. It had a 135mm f2.8 JC Penney lens. It had a 2x converter, and that was my kit for the time. And that's what I was set out to photograph concerts with, and it worked fairly well. But what I learned real quickly is that I wanted into a system camera that would take motor drives or film advance winders and more lenses. This is what they call an M42 screw mount lens. It means that the lens literally screws onto the camera, and this was I guess the easy way to think about this is the L mount alliance kind of thing, where different camera brands use the same mount, kind of like that in today's world. So this was my starter, and I was on the search for a new camera. Well, as a kid back in the late 1970s, early 80s, I went to work and I was making $2.35 an hour. And I had the desire to buy a really solid professional 35mm camera, and it had to be all full manual and have all the abilities of using motor drives, good lenses, a flash system, and all that kind of stuff. And the one I'd settled on at the time was the Nikon FM. It was probably arguably the best 35mm full manual camera on the market. Problem was, it made $2.35 an hour, and I could have worked until I was dead in order to be able to afford such an animal. Thus to say, I never got one. So what I did do is I settled on the second place camera, which at the time was an Olympus OM-1n, and it was running $249, which was a lot of money still back then. But I bought that camera, and it was $249. I put it on layaway and paid it out over time. So if you notice, this is the camera itself, and on the camera, on the lens cap, it says Soligor. Soligor is a third-party lens. So what I'm going to do is I've got a list of third-party lenses, and if you don't know what a third-party lens is, a third-party lens is a lens that is not of the camera brand that you're putting on. So say you had a Canon or a Nikon, you'd put a Canon or a Nikon brand lens on that camera. If you put anything else, it would be a third-party lens. Now, does it mean all third-party lenses are bad? No, in some cases, some third-party lenses are better than the actual original manufacturer's lens. But I'm going to give you a list of common third-party lenses that you will hear today. And it might surprise you. The first one is Tamron, followed by Sigma, Tachina, Rokinon, Yongnuo, Samyang, Cosina, Viltrox, TT Artisan, Laowa, Meike, Neewer, and believe it or not, in that lens group fits Carl Zeiss. And in the old days, one of the best lenses you could buy and put on a camera, regardless of brand, was a device called a Vivitar 70 to 210 Series 1 lens, and that was the lens of choice to have at the time. So those are all third-party lenses. Some are better than the original manufacturers. Some are garbage. It just depends on what you have. But what you have to figure out is which one you want to use. And in this world today, what they will do is manufacturers will say, oh, you got to have that Sony A9 or that Nikon Z8 or Z9 or the Canon R3, which is $5,000-$6,000, okay? That's along the same lines as that Nikon FM that I wanted to buy back in the late 70s, early 80s, which was $500, $550. I couldn't afford it. There was no way I was going to afford it. But I had to do something. So I bought a camera. I bought the next best thing I could buy and I could put in my price range and afford. And then I had to start putting lenses on it. The manufacturer's lenses for the Olympus, as well as the Nikon or anything else, Canon, Pentax, were very expensive. I couldn't do it, but I still had to shoot. What good is a camera without a lens on it? Not very good at all. So what I did is I scoped out what lenses I was going to need, figured out which ones I could afford, and I bought the best that I could at the time. And there's no shame in doing that. If you don't take any pictures, what's the point? Okay, you have to have a camera and you have to have a lens to put on it. So I couldn't afford a lot the Vivitar Series 1s. The Vivitar Series 1 lens at the time was, the way it worked was, at that point it was $1 a millimeter or thereabouts, and it was 210, 250, and I ended up buying that is in third-party lenses, and I ended up buying this 135 f2.5 for the Olympus Soligar, and I bought a 200 millimeter f3.5. This one I paid just over $125, and I think the 200 I paid right about $179, which made it affordable. Back when you figure you're making $2.35 an hour and working 40 hours a week, it takes a long time to pay these things off. So it was expensive. Not unlike today, where you go out and you look at a lens and you say, well, you got to have that that 24 to 70 or 24 to 80 f2.8, and that thing's $2,000, and you make, as a young photographer, let's say you make anywhere from $10 to $15, $16 an hour. How many hours would that take for you to pay it off? It would be a ton. Okay, and then you don't want to put it on credit if you can't help it. So what you want to do is be able to pay it off in one whack if you can. But if you can't, you buy a $5,000 camera and two $2,000 lenses. You're at roughly 10 grand. You're chasing your tail, not getting anything accomplished because you cannot afford to buy the camera and use it. It's just impossible. So buy the best camera that you can buy for the money that you can afford in your price range. Yeah, you may have to make some consolations. You may have to make some considerations as to what you want, but you're going to have to make some adjustments, and it's going to be a matter of cost versus capability. Figure out all the fancy features that you need and figure out which ones you can live without. Figure out what lenses you can buy and what you can afford. And if that lens just so happens to be a Young-Now, a Samyang, a Casina, whatever, if it's in your price range, you can afford it, buy it. I've noticed lately that Canon has come out with some APS-C cameras that are well under $1,000. That's an option. You don't have to buy an R3 or something like that. That's costing you anywhere from $2,000 to $6,000. You can buy one of the lesser cameras and at least get started, and that's what you want to do. I did end up buying with my Olympus later by saving my tax money. When I got my tax money back, I remember I was in the bank and I just cashed my income tax check. I walked immediately next door, which the bank was next door to the camera shop. Very convenient, isn't it? And I walked in and I bought this 28 f2.8 Olympus lens, and I paid $118 back then for it. And a manufacturer's made in Japan lens for their camera. It was a bargain and a steal. So I did buy lenses like that when I could afford them. So if you found anything useful, anything you like in this video, man, press that like button. Beat that subscribe button. I do appreciate it. Our channel is growing. We're getting some places with it, and we'd like to thank you for viewing our videos. And don't be ashamed. Go to work, do what you can, buy what you can afford, and don't go crazy with it. And start doing what you need to do. Thank you. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.